What's up? It's Kev Lou. I'm here at Fantasy Facts Machine. My boy George, the Truth Factory Fuchs. We are going to be discussing the top 10 tight ends in the NFL fantasy football season for 2021. And George, you want to share some thoughts on the tight ends?
Just kind of quickly, the evolution of the tight ends has been incredible. I mean, you go from really one or two standouts a year for so long with, guys like Tony Gonzalez, guys like Antonio Gates, guys that on your fantasy team are essential, but very rarely are they going to win you the league. To a point where now we have a guy that's an overwhelming first-round pick, and if he's the best player on your team, you have a real chance to win the league.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like sometimes I think the tight ends are underrated, and sometimes I think they're overrated, and there's kind of starting to come into form with these guys that are top tier, almost wide receivers when you look at Kelce and Waller.
The evolution just of the position, of the athletes, of the offenses using them, it's been incredible. And, we had a tight end selected fourth overall in the draft this year.
Right.
I mean, when did you think that was ever going to happen? So
yeah,
we'll see. I mean, we're going to talk about that guy a little bit, but
we'll
he's
jump into
not number one on the board quite yet.
Not yet. So let's jump into this top 10. You want to take the first pick and let us know? I think I know who it might be.
It's you know what, I'm going to go pretty chalk here, but I'm going to take this Travis Kelce guy. I'm worried that, he did shave the beard, so we could have a little Samson Delilah situation happening, but he's just incredible. I mean, he is the focal point of that offense, and that offense might be they might break every record in the book this year. That's how high I am on them. If you take him in the first round, after the 7th or 8th pick, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and you could very well win the league. Yeah,
I think a good way to sum it up is he's the best tight end and he has the best quarterback. So
seems like a pretty good combination.
Yeah, that's a good equation. My guy I would take is Darren Waller if I had the second tight end in the draft. He came on really strong last year, 1,100 yards receiving, almost 1,200, and he had 9 touchdowns. He was the second fantasy football player and for tight ends, and that probably was in due part to George Kittle being injured, but he had an incredible season. I think he's going to have a great season. They lost a couple wide receivers, and he's pretty much the focal point of their offense, I would say.
Another guy, yeah.
So I would go with Darren Waller here.
I would also take Waller 2 overall. It was close between him and my namesake, who I'm going to take 3rd overall. I'm going to go with Mr. Kittle. That offense was just ravaged last year by injuries, including Kittle, but we'll see how it develops, whether it's Jimmy or Trey throwing the ball. They need a safety valve. And he's more than just a safety valve. He's incredibly athletic. He runs great routes. He's a hell of a blocker. If he can stay on the field, he's worth every bit of capital that you're going to put into him. Kittle's a very injury-based, safe play, 3rd overall.
Yeah, I think the thing about George Kittle is he's probably one of the only tight ends in the history of the NFL that could outperform Kelce if he stays healthy. I'm not saying he will.
He's had
but
injuries. Last year was brutal, but the year before he missed some games too. So he definitely has something to be worried about. But we'll see how it goes this year.
Yeah, and he puts up numbers without Mahomes as his quarterback too. That's the thing.
Jimmy G's not quite Mahomes.
That's not quite. My next tight end on this list is Mark Andrews. I think he's probably the 4th best tight end in the league this year. It's debatable at this point. I think we're kind of jumping into that second tier of tight ends. Those top 3 guys are probably heads and shoulders above the next tier of tight ends. But Andrews has a great rapport with Lamar Jackson. He's kind of that safety valve when Lamar gets on the run. He has 700 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. I don't see him improving drastically on that this year, but I do see him putting up those same numbers. So I like Mark Andrews.
Hard to argue, right? That offense they have a lot more weapons this year. Should give Andrews a lot more opportunities to get open. Seems like Rashad Bateman will be healthy earlier than we thought. That injury wasn't so bad. It's a huge year for the Ravens, and Andrews is a absolutely instrumental part of that offense. No arguments with that.
And I'll point out right here. So when I say we're dropping the second tier, now we're getting the guys who are not quite as consistent, right?
No, these aren't guys you're taking the 1st, 2nd, probably even 3rd round.
Right.
But these are guys that will have those 2 touchdown weeks. Will have those 6 receptions, 100-yard, games.
They'll win you some weeks, but they will not win you the league.
That's a very, very fair assessment.
There we go.
I'm going to take a guy next that I'm incredibly high on this year, and it's probably going to be from one of the worst teams in the league. I'm going to take TJ Hockenson.
Wow.
He had a pretty solid year last year in an abysmal Detroit team, which, you could say for decades on now. But Hockenson had 67 catches, 725 yards, put up 6 touchdowns, and he was an All-Pro last year. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler last year. I'm sorry.
You know what's funny is out of these guys we've discussed, he may be the first guy who's the best player on his offense.
I'm not really sure it's close. I mean,
I guess Waller could be the best player in his offense.
Yeah, Waller. It's just, Jared Goff is going in there. They're going to play it safe with Jared Goff. Jared Goff is who he is. He's who we thought he is, right? He's going to throw a lot of short passes, a lot of intermediate passes. There's a safety valve, and that safety valve is TJ Hockenson, and he's a pretty damn good one to have. They're going to be down a lot. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. I expect an all-pro season from him this year.
Yeah, and for anyone that's not familiar, I don't know if we said it, but TJ Hockenson is on the Detroit Lions, so there's something to be said about that. My next guy, I would say Kyle Pitts. He was the number 4 draft pick this year, which funny enough wasn't a huge surprise to a lot of people. I mean, it was a surprise to some people, but he's going into a play action offense, and so number 4 is the highest a tight end's ever been drafted. So they have big plans for this guy, and Matt Ryan's going to be throwing the ball, so I would expect him to have a pretty good season, and the next season to come even better. I think he'll, just like you said, as far as tight ends becoming a huge part of an offense, a huge part of fantasy football, he's going to be a big part of that coming.
I think they're going to line him up everywhere. He's going to be in the slot. He might be out wide at times. We haven't really seen an athlete quite like him that's listed as a tight end. I mean, Gronk. Okay, let's be fair, Gronk. But
Kittle's pretty damn athletic himself
as well. But Pitts has this extra gear that you saw a little bit at Florida last year. But we'll see what he looks like in an NFL offense. You're not taking him 4th overall and not playing him a ton. So you want to go up for upside. I have no arguments whatsoever.
Yeah, he's gonna be fun to watch and see develop in that offense.
I'm gonna go with slightly less flashy, but I think a guy who's gonna have a very solid year. I'm gonna take Dallas Goedert. The Zach Ertz era, I think, has finally come to an end in Philly. They're another team that doesn't really have established wide receivers by any means. I know they drafted Devontae Smith. I know Jalen Reagor should be getting more targets this year, but Goedert and Hurts developed a rapport pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Goedert will be getting the entire target share.
Yeah, he's another quarterback who needs a safety valve sometimes in a tight end.
All these guys do, and that's what the tight end used to be. Now it's becoming a more explosive kind of thing, but Goddard's, I think, a pretty, I don't want to say he's got the highest ceiling by any means, but I do think he's got a pretty high floor, and if you're taking him in the mid-late rounds, you feel pretty good about it.
Are you concerned about? You're not concerned about Ertz at all, or?
I think the Ertz era in Philadelphia has ended.
Yeah.
He's still technically on the roster, but the trade talks are heavy with whoever. If not, they'll work something out. I think Ertz might have something left in the bag. I just don't see it in Philly.
Yeah. I would agree with that. He had a nice run though in Philly for sure. Got a nice Super Bowl. Yeah. My next guy, and I feel like we're dropping into the next tier here of tight ends. It's debatable, but these next guys are not. I don't even know if they're going to get you too many 2-touchdown games. But I'm going to go with Noah Fant on Denver. He's heading into his 3rd season, and he's developing a rapport with Drew Lock. Of course, if Bridgewater comes in and takes a starting job, I think Bridgewater will also utilize him. So I think that he's going to have a pretty decent season, 500, 600, 700 yards receiving, probably about 5 touchdowns. He should be a solid tight end, and hopefully improve, make another step up this season. So I like Fant here.
Yeah, he's a bit different in the sense that they have some really good wide receivers. So that could, help with his coverage. Fant's a very athletic guy. He was really, really, potent last year. And him and Hockenson, both Iowa guys, both 3rd-year guys, ready to make that jump. Pretty happy if I get him late.
Yeah. I would say he's probably, now we're talking about maybe 7th round.
7th, 8th, yeah, easily. But a lot of that is just based on draft dynamics. It's based on, your team. Noah Fant is a good player. If you're reaching for Noah Fant, something might be a little off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a homer. I haven't had a homer pick all day yet, so I guess I gotta go.
You need at least 1 homer pick per
episode. Yeah. Irv Smith Jr. A tremendous thank you to Kyle Rudolph for everything he did for the Vikings. But it's Irv Smith's team now. Rudolph's on the Giants. You draft this guy in the second round a couple of years ago. He's been learning. Last year, he started getting the targets that...
Another athletic guy, too.
Very athletic guy, great blocker, and he is their tight end. I mean, they're the backup's Tyler Conklin, which is, fine. But Irv Smith is going to be on the field. He's got the two great wide receivers. Last year was, relatively slow, but he was in an offense that was splitting tight ends. He had something like 30 catches, but he had 5 touchdowns. He's going to be on the field a lot more this year. He's going to be getting a ton of those short throws that Cousins love to make to get that completion percentage up. I'm definitely not bitter when I say that.
Yeah.
And I think he's great value late.
Yeah, a thing about a bunch of these guys is that they're going to be in some shootouts. They're going to be in some second halves where the team's throwing the ball a lot, and that's definitely going to boost some statistics for fantasy football.
And that was frustrating last year because I was looking at it briefly, but he had 9 targets in one game. It was the Thanksgiving game where Kamara put up 5 touchdowns. So let's not take that into consideration too much, but hopefully that doesn't happen all too often.
Yeah, well, we'll see. They have an interesting division, so it'll be fun to watch. I'm going to go with Robert Tonyan Jr. here on the Packers. He was actually the number 3, I believe, or number 4 tight end last year. Mainly, you can attribute that to his touchdown output, which he had 11 touchdowns. He did not have quite the receiving yardage to match the touchdowns, but there's nothing that says that he won't have, at least 8 touchdowns with Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball. And heading into the 2021 season, I just want a piece of the Packers offense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Rodgers was pissed off. He's going to come in pissed off. He's going to throw the ball, and Devontae's going to get a ton of it. But Tonyan, pretty sure we were talking about guys that aren't going to win you the league, but they're going to win you some weeks. Tonyan had a 3-touchdown game on Monday Night Football last year. He won some people some weeks, and he wasn't really on a lot of rosters at that point, but he became a pretty hot commodity. I think there's so many guys in this kind of level, in the Tonyan level, that you can get late if you wait, that will be solid for you, that will produce for you. I love guys like Anthony Firkser on Tennessee this year. Jonnu Smith left. Firkser is their tight end. Again, they love that safety valve. He's going to get a lot of targets. I think Dawson Knox has a chance to break out this year on Buffalo.
He had a couple good games last year.
He did, and he's very athletic. He's talented, and that offense is a throwing offense now. As much as we think that Buffalo is going to run the ball a ton, like Josh Allen is going to be throwing a ton.
How about Logan Thomas on Washington?
What a year he had last year, right?
Yeah.
You're worried that he might have peaked already a little bit, but he's a young guy. He just got a huge contract. And he's not their, he's definitely not their one. McLaurin is, but Curtis Samuel coming in, Fitzpatrick coming in.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick's going to make a huge difference for all those guys.
Yeah, a guy that I'd be perfectly happy taking. And that's the thing. I think we're just content with a lot of these guys. If we get Kelce, we're elated. If we get Waller, we're pretty damn happy. But a lot of these guys, we're not really going to be that upset.
Right. Yeah. Keep in mind right now we're into the, we're talking about, we've probably talked about 13 or 14 of these guys. So you should be able to get one of these guys in the late rounds of your draft. Anything else you want to add to that?
Outside of any more homer picks, I think we covered pretty much.
No more Viking. Just do not take more than one Viking tight end in
that's definitely, don't do that. There's a couple other guys that we probably could have mentioned. Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett, right? They finally gone their separate ways, but both are starting tight ends for their team now, and both can produce, right?
I had those guys on my list, but they didn't quite crack the top 10.
And there's some other guys that we're not going to talk about today that I'm sure you'll hear about week 5 of the season. They're probably going to win you a few weeks this year.
Yep. So that's our tight end countdown. Feel free to comment. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. We appreciate you watching, and we will see you soon. Thanks a lot. Peace.
Set up my squad, wake up and pray. Turn on the tube, don't believe what they say. Get out my way, I got sleepers to play. Shooting my shot and I seen who you waved. You waving the flag, I'm just chasing the bag. All my team special, we taking it back. Doing our dance while you blaming the draft. I'm a machine, just stating the facts. I'm a machine, just stating the facts. I'm a machine, just stating the facts. I'm a machine, just stating the facts.